So recently I've been covering a lot of Git interfaces, and one of the suggestions that pops up in the comment section every single time I do one of those videos is LazyGit. So I thought, okay, since people keep suggesting this so much, I will go test it out, and you know what? It's actually pretty good. I would put it at the same level as something like, say, Tig, but I'll leave the final decision for that up to you guys. So let's go and see what it can actually do then. Now, as you can probably tell, if you compare this to Tig, this already makes so much more sense as a Git interface. When you first open up Tig, it's just a massive Git log, and there's no real indication of what any of the key bindings are, how to do anything in the application. You could probably be confused about the fact that Tig is even more than just a Git log. This, on the other hand, you can already see that there are things that can be done. You may not know how to do them, but you can sort of stumble around the interface and try and guess what you need to do. Now, if you are ever unsure about any of the key bindings in this application, there is a help menu, so if you press the question mark key, that'll bring that open. Now, the help menu is going to be dependent on which box you're actually focused on. So right now we're on the files box. So if we go to the local branches box and we press question mark again, it's going to show different key bindings. If we go to commits, it's going to show different key bindings again. Just because there's too many key bindings in this application and some of them overlap with each other. So putting them all into one big box just would make it really confusing. One slightly confusing thing about this application is to go up and down between the boxes, you press left and right. So left will go up and right will go down. The up and down keys will scroll inside of a box. Just keep that in mind. I was real confused about that when I first used it, but once you get your head wrapped around that, it makes it pretty easy to use. Obviously, an important part of a Git interface is being able to commit stuff. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you're focused on the files window. So this window right here. Now, if you go and select the file by pressing spacebar, that's then going to go and stage that. Now, if you go and press A, that's then going to stage everything. Now, as you saw there, it also works as a toggle. So if you go and press the staging button on something already staged, it's going to go and unstage it. So let's go and restage it. And if we press lowercase c, that's going to let us do the commit message directly in the application. But this is only going to let you do a very short description. So if we just give no commit message here, that's then going to quit out of that. If instead we wanted to do it with our editor, we can go and press capital C. And this is obviously going to bring up Vim for me, so we can say this is a commit. As you can see, the commit has been successfully made. So let's go back into the application. All we have to do is press enter to go back, and now the commit has been made. So if we look down at this right here, this is the latest commit that we've made right here. Now, one thing that is slightly annoying about this application is it doesn't actually change the color of text while you're focused on it. It actually just makes the text bold. So you probably can't even tell that I'm focused on something right now just because it's such a small difference. I would like to see it use a different version of the color to indicate that I'm focused on it, but I guess you kind of got to work with what you got. So if you go and press enter on a file, that's going to go and take you over to the diff window here, and from here you can do things like staging a chunk by pressing space on it, and you can unstage it by pressing space again. And once again, like with the previous windows, there is a help menu for this, so there are some other operations you can do, but most of the operations are pretty basic. Really, the only one you're going to care about is D to actually delete that change. Now, if we go and press escape to get back to that window on the left, what we can do from here is press D on the file, and that's going to go and reset every single change in the file. It will prompt you to do this though, so you won't just accidentally lose all of your changes. And for now, I'm just going to go and select cancel. Now, another thing you can do is if you press I on a file, it's going to prompt you to add it into your git ignore. Now, another thing you might notice here is some of the prompts are going to be a little bit inconsistent. Some of them are just going to be a prompt like this. Some of them are going to require you to press cancel. I don't know why they're inconsistent like that, but I think all of them you can escape out of anyway, so I'm not really sure what the deal is there. So I'm going to say that we'll add this into our git ignore, and that should actually go and modify the git ignore. As you can see, there's a new line in this, and I'm pretty sure that we can go and open up our editor by pressing E on the file. So if I go and do that, as you can see, there's a new line in our git ignore. Also, I don't think I had a git ignore anyway, so it went and actually made that file as well. So I'm just going to quit out of this now, and it's going to prompt us to return back to LazyGit. Once we press enter, as you're going to see, we're now back in the application. And if we want to go and stash our changes, we can press S, and it's going to prompt us for a name. I'm just going to say this is called stash, and now we have a new stash. So let's go down to the branches and see what we can do from here. So this window actually has extra tabs, so you can cycle through those by doing the left and the right square brackets. Obviously, right is going to go right, left is going to go left. So from the branches tab, what you can do is if you go and press N, that's going to prompt you to make a new branch. If you press D, let's go and press D on the new branch, that's going to prompt you to delete the branch. If you want to rename a branch, that can be done with the capital R key. So let's say new branch is going to be better branch or something like that. Don't actually name your branches like this. I've said this in previous Git videos. This is just for the sake of an example. Don't actually do some of the things that I'm actually doing. Now, if you want to go and check out a branch, you can go and press space on it. So the branch that you currently have checked out is going to be marked with an asterisk. So let's go and press space on the master branch. And now we've gone and checked that one out. Or if you prefer, you can go and check the branch out by name by pressing C. So that can actually prompt you for the name. I'm just going to say, let's check out better branch this time. And as you're going to see, we've gone and checked that one out. If you go and obviously put a mistake in there, it's not really going to be able to find a branch, and it's going to tell you that branch doesn't actually exist. And capital F is going to let you force a checkout. So basically what this means is if the branch that you're currently on has changes on it, when you go and check out the new branch, it's going to go and discard those changes and let you check out the branch anyway. With a regular checkout, it's going to say, hey, you have changes on this branch. You probably want to do something about those changes before you check out a new branch. Now, if you need to merge a branch, that can be done with the capital M key. And the way that this works is it's going to merge whatever the selected branch is into the branch that you're currently on. So in the case of having the better branch checked out and selecting the master branch, it's going to try to merge the master branch into the better branch. So if I try that out now, as you're going to see, are you sure you want to merge master into better branch? And you know what? Let's actually go and do this. So if I go and press enter, now it's going to go and do a new merge, and the branch does still exist, but now master branch has actually been merged into the better branch. You can also go and rebase a branch into another branch by pressing the R key, so that's lowercase r, not capital R, but the rest of the rebase options are going to be in the commit section. Now, one thing that actually is kind of cool in this section is if you go and press O, as you're going to see, this branch doesn't actually have a remote connected to it, but if it did, this would let you go and actually open up a pull request on your remote. So let's go and do that over in a different repo. So let's go over to my .files repo and go into LazyGit here, go down to the branches window, and if I press O on this, as you're going to see, it's going to try and open up a pull request on my GitHub. I haven't tested it with things like GitLab, but I presume it probably works on those as well. Over on the remotes tab, if you go and press F, that's going to let you fetch from a remote. If you go and press N, that's going to let you add a new remote. I'm going to say, let's call it, I don't know, test, and the remote URL is going to be www.fakeurl.com. I have no idea if that website even exists or not. Doesn't really matter. And if you go and scroll down to it, you can see the URL for it is the one that we just put in. If you go and press E on a remote, that's going to let you edit it. And if you press D, that's going to let you go and delete it. So let's go and remove that remote. And as you can see, now we're just left with the one origin remote. You can even do some stuff in here with tagging. So over on the tags tab, if you go and press N, like with the previous ones, that's going to let you add a new tag. If you press D, that's going to let you go and delete a tag. But as you can see, we don't have one. So I should have actually just made one there. We'll call it test. And if we go and press D on this, as you're going to see, it will let us delete that. So I have a feeling that most of the work for this application was put into the commits window. And I think you'll see what I mean in just a bit. So if you want to go check a commit out, all you have to do is find the one you want to check out and press space on it. It's going to prompt you to do that. I'm going to say, let's check out this commit here and press enter. As you're going to see, it now shows which commit we're actually on in our branch window, just so you don't forget that you're actually not on a normal branch. Now, if you want to go back to the branch you were just on, all you have to do is recheck out the branch that you want to be on. So in this case, let's go to the better branch. So press space on that. And let's say we wanted to do something like view the files in a commit. So let's say we want to view this one right here. If I press enter on this, it will switch over to the commit files window, and we can see the one file committed was file 4. If you want to go and reword a commit, this can be done by pressing lowercase r on it. This can only be done on the latest commit though. So let's say we want to reword this one, we'll change it to something like merging branch. And as you're going to see, the commit ID has changed and also the commit message has changed. Now, you should also be able to reword an older commit, but this can only be done through a rebase. And the way that you start a rebase is by pressing capital R on it, and that's going to let you go and change the message in an editor. Now, One problem with this is I don't think there's a way to resolve a rebase inside of the application. So let's just change this to another better message. Well, technically there's a way to do it, but I don't think there's a key binding to do it. So let's go and save this, and it's going to take us back to our terminal. If we press enter now, that's going to take us into the application. So to actually resolve this rebase, that actually leads us into something else. If we go and press colon, it's going to let us go and run a arbitrary command. So if we try to run git rebase -- continue, continue, spell it correctly, it doesn't seem to have resolved it, but I don't really feel like fixing this on camera. So instead, what we're going to do is just run git rebase -- abort and go back into LazyGit. And now we're back to the previous state we were just in. If you have any stage changes, if you go and press capital A on a commit, it will let you go and amend that commit with those changes. But as you can see, we don't actually have any stage changes. So if we try to run this, it's not really going to do that much. Lowercase s is going to let you squash a commit downwards. So if we try that on the merging branch, we can squash this down into the previous commit here. And as you're going to see, it's going to try to squash it, which is going to force another rebase. But for some reason, the rebases don't seem to be working right now. So if we just get rid of that git rebase -- abort. So if you want to squash upwards, that can be done by pressing capital S. So this is a pretty terrible repo to show off cherry picking, but if you go and press lowercase c on a commit, it will let you go and copy the commit, and then V will let you go and paste it. But obviously trying to do this on the same branch isn't really going to be doing anything too productive. So make sure that you don't confuse lowercase t and capital T. So capital T is going to let you go and add a tag to a commit. So let's say we want the tag to just be tag, and as you're going to see, it now has that tag. Now lowercase t, on the other hand, is going to let you go and revert a commit. The problem with this, though, is it's a reversion with no confirmation. So as you can see, the commit is just getting reverted, and there's not really any confirmation that's actually happening. If you want to go and bring the commit back, though, you can then go and cherry pick those commits you did revert, and that should bring them back. So as you can see, those commits have now been returned to the repo, but there should be some confirmation there. It shouldn't just revert them without confirming it with the user. And the last window I want to mention is the stash window. So if you go and press G, it's going to let you go and pop the stash. If you go and press D, it will let you drop the stash, and space is going to let you apply the stash. But as you can see, I was testing it off camera and those files are now in the repo, so trying to do those operations isn't going to work in the same way that it would work with a clean repo. And from any of the windows at all, lowercase p is going to let you push to a remote, capital P is going to let you pull from a remote, and lowercase f is going to let you fetch from a remote. So overall, LazyGit and Tig are both really competent choices, but personally, I think that Tig does some things a little bit better. Even though the user interface for LazyGit is so much better than Tig, what Tig does is it allows me to actually bind arbitrary commands. This one, you can rebind the command. So if you go over to the GitHub page, as you're going to see, every single key in the application can be rebinded. But I don't think there's a way to bind arbitrary commands. So you can't say, I want to run this big long sequence of Git commands. You're kind of stuck with whatever the application actually has set up for you, which might be fine for you. But if there's some really special use case you want and you don't want to just be using the Git CLI, you kind of have to use Tig. Tig seems to be the only option that allows you to bind arbitrary commands. There might be some other option out there, but from the ones that I've tested, Tig is the only one that allows you to do that. So personally, I would recommend people using Tig, but if you don't have any of those weird use cases and you just want a really powerful Git interface that does basically everything you want, this might be a pretty good option. I think if you don't want the extra stuff that Tig does, this is probably going to be the best option. So I think that's going to be pretty much everything for me, but before I go, I would like to thank my supporters. So a special thank you to Joachim Corbinian, Andrew Craig, Nathan Montazar, Joseph Peter D. Road, Tony Donald, John Marek, Mikkel Spien, Thais, and Zilva. If you want to go and support my work, there'll be some links down below to my Patreon and my Cointree and things like that. If you want to go watch rambling nonsense for multiple hours, go check out my podcast. That is Tech Over Tea, available on Library, YouTube, and some other platforms as well. And the audio version is available anywhere you listen to audio podcasts. Also remember to go check out this channel if you're watching it on YouTube, on Library, BitTube, and BitChute. Library has the best monetization, so if that's something you care about, go check out the content on Library. So I think that's pretty much everything for me, and I'm out.